Don't click that link. Don't tap that link. Don't do anything. Hackers, they're stealing money in more creative and sinister ways. 2 women in Ontario lost their life savings to hackers simply by tapping on a link that was texted to them. Seemingly didn't matter what bank they were with. One of these women was with RBC, and that's a big, long-standing behemoth of a bank. Another was with Wealth Simple. That's a newer institution for tech-savvy people. Well, it didn't save them there. More and more Canadians are falling victim to these attacks. So as these cyber crimes get more sophisticated, how do you protect yourself? Let's go to Claudiu Popa, privacy and cybersecurity expert. Claudiu, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on the show.
So I guess the first thing I want to get to is these people that had their life savings stolen, like $50,000, right? Did they do something wrong?
Well, there's a certain amount of responsibility that comes with being alive in this day and age, which means you need to be aware that society as a whole has not yet put in safeguards that protect everybody preventatively. So you need to be aware that there are scams that leverage technology, that leverage the internet, that leverage devices that we don't necessarily know how to use. And the possibilities do appear limitless, but they're actually very, very constrained, right? So the fraudulent calls can only come through a communication device. Mm-hmm. So you need to, of course, be sensitive to the fact that if you receive an unsolicited call or an unsolicited message, that should look suspicious. If that message is demanding something that is unusual, that should make you skeptical. If you're not expecting anything and it looks like an urgent demand, then that by definition should be not just ignored but reported. So there are certain best practices that we have as Canadians alive today that need to be ingrained into society as a whole. And that's the kind of stuff that I talk to kids and seniors about every day of the week. So I'm not saying that people are responsible for getting defrauded. What I'm saying is that people need to know that these things can happen, and if possible, tell others. That's what we call being unhackable, by making your entire network, your personal network, your ecosystem aware and sensitized to the potential for getting fooled by an increasing amount of what are almost always financially motivated scam.
I know it's impossible to know all the details of these 2 stories that I referenced off the top, right? And I don't expect you to know all the details, but one thing I want to know is how much interaction was required by the people that got duped, because, was it a matter of you tap on one link and then poof, you've given up the info just by tapping, or did they have to tap on the link and then they're given a question and then they go along with it and they do other things and they get duped over a longer process? I'd love to know more on that front.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because this is literally what scammers spend their nights thinking about, is how can I reduce the number of clicks that it takes to defraud someone or to impersonate or clone somebody's identity so that I might be able to walk into a bank and convince them that I am them. So there are two branches to this answer. The first one is when people actually expect a call. If people are expecting a call, let's say that they are advertising a sweater on Kijiji or on Facebook Marketplace, then receiving a message that asks them to click on a payment confirmation link is not going to be out of the ordinary. And that means those people are more vulnerable because they were expecting it. The other people who are not expecting it have to somehow be fooled into clicking that link. And if that link includes something recognizable, like a brand or a bank or a familiar name, they're more likely to click. Once they click, if the website is able to recognize the device that they're connecting from, that can mean that that device will get infected within that one click. So to answer your question, yes, it's possible to get infected with one click. It's more likely that whatever pops up if it's at all recognizable, you will, or the victim will be motivated to enter maybe a name, maybe a username, maybe a password. And at that point, they've got them, right? So it's that reduction in the number of clicks that makes it critical for us to communicate the need to filter things at the front end. And I'll tell you a funny story. As I was waiting for your call, it said Bell Media on the phone, and I ignored it 3 times. and then the radio station texts me and says, "Are you ready for this interview?" And I said, "Yes, but I'm trying to get rid of these cameras because I've been receiving calls that have been impersonating Bell Media for weeks now, and I was trying to wait for your call to come through." So it's interesting that because you get oversensitized to preventing these types of things at the front end by simply filtering your calls, you might end up having some false positives, as we call them, and essentially miss out on some opportunities.
And just to your point, like, you don't want to get paralyzed on actually getting stuff done because you think everything must be a scam. So, I got to ask you, because I have a listener that's adamant, well, the way around this is storing the cash underneath the mattress. They'll never get it that way. but then, I'm sure there's ways they can get it underneath the mattress as well. But what can we do? What's the solution here if storing it under the mattress really isn't an option?
The one thing that is important for people to understand is that no one here is stupid. Most people who get defrauded feel terrible, they feel embarrassed, they feel humiliated, and they feel like there's no recourse anyway, so why bother reporting it? In fact, it's extremely important to report these things, most notably to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, because other Canadians need to find out about these trends, which move very, very quickly. But before that situation that could lead to a cynicism that might impact your quality of life overall, you simply need to remember to take a step back and think about what it is you're doing. One of the things that we recommend, and obviously it's now no longer a fringe practice, it's to enable that multi-factor authentication. You have to have that 2-factor wherever it's possible on all of your accounts, obviously all your bank accounts, but also your social media accounts, your utility bills, your subscriptions to your...
The 2-factor, right, for our listeners, the 2-factor identification, that is like, okay, they'll send you a text message, like just to describe that, because I'm sure some people are afraid of those text messages too.
Second password. It's a second password that's generated on the fly. It gets communicated to you by email, by text message, or by something called an authenticator app. And you get that number and you plug it in and you're able to log in. It's an additional layer of protection. In addition to that layer of protection, you've also got the extra delay that allows you to think. And if you're thinking and you're saying, oh, well, there's my bank's website, and for some reason, it's not asking me for that second factor, that second password, that code. Well, there must be something going on here. So it gives you a chance to think in addition to adding a layer of security. That's why people or listeners should always go through all their accounts and see if there are any that they can enable multi-factor or 2-factor, or sometimes it's called 2-step verification, as Google calls it. Enable it, and at least it gives you that delay that allows you to think about it for a little bit, and perhaps instead of clicking on something, you'll call a friend or you'll reach over to the next person and say, hey, look at this. This is weird.
And get that second eyes on it as well. Claudiu, I got to leave it there. I want to thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure. It's been great.
Claudiu Popa, you too, Claudiu. Claudiu Popa is a privacy and cybersecurity expert.